Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio, keeping you informed, engaged, and entertained. My name is Michael Spinella, and I'll be your host for the next hour. This is episode 297 of the Canadiens Connection podcast, and I'm very pleased to be joined in the studio by my co-host, the editor of the Hockey News Montreal, the founder and the president of Rocket Sports, Rick Stevens. And how are you doing today, Rick?
Thanks, Michael. I'm doing great. Excited to get to, as you said, episode 297 of the Canadiens Connection podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Montreal Canadiens players who are excelling in the offseason. We're calling it Canadiens players who are making strides in the offseason. And to do that, I'm happy that we're going to have a special guest in the second segment. You'll get to that in a minute, but also happy to have you back in the studio. And welcome back. You were gone for a couple of weeks, and we thank Amy Johnson for filling in. She did a great job in the last 2 weeks. Listen, now, sometimes, you're in Montreal, you go to the Eastern Townships, maybe you go to Kingston, Ottawa. That's not where you were this time.
Nope, a little bit south of the equator in this case. Took a little 2-week vacation out to Peru, so big thanks to our Peruvian friends for having me along. Beautiful country down there. What I can't say is, obviously, I live in Montreal right now. Driving can be a little bit nerve-wracking here, but luckily I was not driving in Peru, because just being in the cars there and seeing what the highways and the roads and how everyone was driving down there, that's certainly a different animal, but nonetheless, a beautiful vacation. Went out to Machu Picchu, Rainbow Mountain, went out to the Huacachina Oasis as well, so very beautiful vacation, and very excited to be back here. Not too jet-lagged, of course, only the 1 hour difference with the daylight savings happening here in Canada, but not so much in Peru. And honestly, it's feeling good to get back into the stream of things, and very excited to get this podcast underway. And like you said, big thanks goes out to Amy Johnson for filling in for a couple weeks there.
Well, glad to have you back. And you said different animal with respect to driving in the country. You were also kind enough to keep us updated, the Rocket Sports team, via our internal Slack, and you sent us a picture with you beside an animal. You look pretty happy there.
Yep, I got to hang out with the llamas of Peru, just down out, and I believe that one was taken out at the Rainbow Mountain, so very excited that I got to see that beautiful landmark and hang out with beautiful people there and all the beautiful animals, and got a nice photo with a couple of llamas. We're all wearing sunglasses, if you can believe it.
I saw that. That was a great picture. So welcome back, and let's tell the folks what we have in store for them today.
Yes, so happy Memorial Day weekends to everyone south of the border in the USA. This is, like you said, Canadiens Connection episode 297. We titled it Montreal Canadiens Players Making Strides in the Offseason. So in this first segment, we'll take you through all the updates from this past week. We'll talk a little bit of NHL playoffs. We have a couple mock drafts and lists to get to as well. And in segment 2, it's a big topic segment. We're going to welcome a very special guest, like you said, our very own Chris G. It's been a while since we've had him on. Of course, he does a lot of different things for Rocket Sports, and very excited to welcome him back into the studio. In segment 3, we'll turn it over to our listeners. Our Canadiens Connection question of the week is, as we're in the last week of May, what kind of hockey are you watching? NHL playoffs, World Championships, Memorial Cup. We want to hear from you. And Rick, what's the best way for all of our listeners to reach out to us?
You can reach out to us via the Rocket Sports text line. Text us 24 hours a day, 5853-ROCKET. That's 5853-ROCKET. Or 585-376-2538.
You can also reach out to us on our social media. Just make sure that you are following at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And you can check out our website, CanadiensConnection.fm. And here's what's happened since we have been gone. The Eastern Conference Final and the Western Conference Final are underway. In the East, it's the Florida Panthers versus the New York Rangers. Currently, that series is tied up 1-1 with Game 3 tomorrow on Sunday at 3 p.m. The Rangers won last night, a bit of a nail-biter, but this is an interesting series where I think it's almost, I almost want to say opposite style teams. Obviously, you have the Panthers that are very aggressive. They'll throw the body at you. They'll go 10 minutes without playing the puck. They'll just play the body. And then you have the Rangers that I think they're not shy to drop the gloves or anything. They'll put out a few big hits, but I see them more as a skilled team. What are your thoughts on this Eastern Conference Final so far?
Yeah, lots of skills on that Rangers team. Good goaltending excellent goaltending at both ends. Rangers a big team, and not, as you said, not shy to also use the body. And Rempe was in the lineup on Friday night. Kind of behaved himself for the most part. But great game. And that series, as you said, tied up 1-1.
And in the West, it's the Edmonton Oilers versus the Dallas Stars. They'll have a game tonight on Saturday at 8 p.m. Currently, the Oilers lead the series 1-0. But again, a couple of really good teams here. Both teams have a little bit of physicality, tons of skill. Obviously, Canadian team and the Edmonton Oilers getting to the Western Final. Connor McDavid, always a ton of fun to watch, but we'll see what happens here. I feel like this is going to be whether or not Stuart Skinner can handle these Dallas Stars going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. There are three teams of the four that have excellent goaltending. Maybe Jake Ottinger is the best in Dallas, but it was a real gamble for Edmonton not to make a trade to bolster their goaltending, and it's been at times shaky through the playoffs, but it's gotten them through. Ottinger made an incredible save on Connor McDavid, but then McDavid had the last laugh in overtime to put them up 1-0 in the series.
And since we're talking about playoffs, I know that there have been a lot of former Habs making appearances throughout these playoffs. Currently left in the running, we have Corey Perry through 10 games, 0 points with Edmonton. Eric Gustafsson, if you can remember Eric Gustafsson as a Hab, he's got 3 points in 12 games with the Rangers. And for the Dallas Stars, Evgeny Dadonov with 7 points in 12 games with the Dallas Stars. But I feel like there's a pretty lengthy list for the playoffs overall. Rick, do you have any of that information?
I ran across this list on social media. It's not a list I put together. And so I'm not going to, vouch for its accuracy, but it looks pretty good to me. The list says that there are 18 former Habs who participated in this year's playoffs. So some of these players on the list have been eliminated already, but it's sorted by the number of points. And I think some of our listeners may be surprised with the top 3 or 4 on the list. I'm going to give you the first shot at guessing who might be the top 3 scorers just ahead of the conference finals. Tally just ahead of the conference finals. Who you might find at the top of former Habs playoff scoring 2024.
See, this is a difficult one. I'm going to throw out 3 names. One of them is going to be a Galaxy brain. I'm going to say in the top 3, we have Dadonov and Monahan. I'm also going to put out Noah Juleson.
Oh, I like that. I like that pick. What we have is, and I should say, Arturi Lehkonen is at the top of this list, and the other challengers are distant, quite distant to him. According to this list, he had, and with Colorado eliminated, these will be his final stats for 2024 playoff scoring. 11 points in 11 games. That's 6 goals and 5 assists. Right at the top of the list. You mentioned Dadonov, still going with Dallas. And just before the start of the conference finals, he had 3 goals and 3 assists. In third place, according to this list, is, I was almost said Ty Domi, but that would be Max Domi.
True.
4 points in 7 games for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I'll give you a bonus one. I said top 3, but I'll give you a 4th, which was most surprising to me on this list, and that's Brett Kulak
Nice.
for the Edmonton Oilers. 3 points in 11 games. Of course, make that add another game to his list. But at the time this was put together, 3 points. So the rest of the list, the rest of the 18 players, have less than 3 points.
Well, good for Max Domi. I'm disappointed in myself for not getting Lehkonen. That should have been a shoe-in. But nonetheless, always interesting to catch up on what our former Habs are up to. And some of them actually are not competing in the playoffs, but they're competing in the IIHF World Champions. Currently, as of today, Czechia has beat Sweden. They won 7-3 in semifinal. The Czechia will be playing for gold tomorrow on Sunday. And
that was an absolute shocker. Sweden was unbeaten in the tournament, and particularly in the medal rounds, I think they were 8-0 coming into this. But now we have the home team. Of course, it was the tournament in Prague. We have the home team of Czechia moving on to the gold medal final on Sunday. That'll be very exciting for those hometown fans.
And of course, as we all predicted, Dominik Kubalik has looked really good for Czechia, scoring a few goals. Currently, as we're recording, Switzerland versus Canada is underway in the semifinal. I see Switzerland's up to an early lead on Team Canada. That's the winner of that game will be playing Czechia tomorrow on Sunday for gold, and the loser will face off against Sweden for bronze. So we'll keep an eye on and see what's happening there. And I know that actually you and Chris plan on talking about this tournament a little bit more in the second segment.
Yeah, and we're going to talk specifically about the Montreal Canadiens, both players and prospects who participated. There were 5 Montreal Canadiens, members of the Canadiens organization who participated in the tournament. We're going to talk about how they fared and how that affects their development going forward.
So make sure you check out Habs Notebook posts and feature articles appearing daily at thn.com/Montreal throughout this busy offseason. In our roster news, we have a new member of the Montreal Canadiens family, Mike Matheson and his wife welcomed a new baby girl into the family, actually their second child, so big welcome to Mila Rose to the world, and congratulations to the Matheson family.
Mila Rose Matheson entered the world at 6 pounds 10 ounces. If you're keeping track, congratulations to Mike and his wife Emily. And you mentioned they already have a son Hudson, who I believe is a few weeks away from his 3rd birthday. He's now a big brother. So congratulations to the entire Matheson crew. And Mike Matheson declined to go to the World Championship. This was the reason, and seems like a pretty good reason to me.
An update on a Montreal Canadiens first-round pick. With the Edmonton Oilers advancing to the Western Conference Final, we now know the slot of the Canadiens' second first-round pick, the one that they received from the Winnipeg Jets in exchange for Sean Monahan, and that's going to be 26 overall. So we all anticipated that this would be a later pick in that first round, but nice to have a little bit of clarity on when they will be picking.
So once again, the Canadiens will have 2 first-round picks, number 5 overall and number 26, and that's what they have now. Of course, those can be in play, either one, to be moved in an exciting draft day trade. I'm not speculating anything here, but plenty of others seem to be doing just that.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on that for sure. I wouldn't mind if they move that up a little bit, but we'll see. Coming from the fourth period is speculating that Kent Hughes is not interested in selecting a center at the NHL draft. There's an article saying that in general they might not be in the market for help up the middle, as they do want to see Kirby Dach given that opportunity, and possibly Alex Newhook going to third line or moving to the wing. As for this upcoming draft, I know that a lot of Habs fans have their eyes on one or two centers that could be available at that number 5 spot. And let's see if any of this holds true from the fourth period.
Yeah, it's interesting. Dave Pagnotta, they're stirring the pot and releasing this speculation, and it is speculation. Pagnotta said, and he quotes in the article, that Hughes indicates that the Canadiens are not interested in a center. More and more people believe that Caden Lindstrom is ranked favorably on the Canadiens roster, and that if he's not available, if he's already been picked at when it gets to the number 5 spot, that Hughes could trade that pick, either trading down a few spots or perhaps making a deal for a young established player. Purely speculation, but kind of reinforcing the fact that the Canadiens would have an interest in a 6'3", 210 power forward, ranked third by Central Scouting.
And we do have a couple of draft lists to get to. So with that, let's get to our Habs prospect report.
It's time for the Rocket Report. The Rocket Sports Media Team is your premier source for information about the Laval Rocket, the AHL affiliate of the Montreal Canadiens, as well as Habs prospects playing in the CHL, NCAA, and leagues around the world. Bookmark thn.com/Montreal to follow our comprehensive coverage of Canadiens prospects.
So in regard to the 2024 NHL entry draft, Craig Button has put out his latest draft list, and I don't know if it's necessarily specific to Craig Button or if I'm saying this about every new draft list I see, but this one is very much different from the others that I've seen after number 1. Of course, Macklin Celebrini coming in number 1. I'll give you a top 5 here. 2, Ivan Demidov. 3, Konsta Helenius, who I know you're a pretty big fan of. Number 4 is TJ Ginla, again, someone that we're a pretty big fan of here. Coming in at number 5 is Zane Perek, who's actually playing in the Memorial Cup. We'll talk about him coming up, but what do you think about this list coming from Craig Button?
Fascinating. And yeah, there is, after that number 1 pick, Macklin Celebrini, he's number 1 on all the lists, but after that, it's all over the place with the draft lists. And we covered one of those very important lists, and that's from Russ Cohen at Sportsology, and NHLDraftBuzz.com is his site. Incidentally, Russ came out with a version 5.0 of his list this coming week, so you want to check that out. Again, NHLDraftBuzz.com. As far as Craig from TSN, Craig Button, an interesting list, and Demidov is certainly not a surprise at number 2. Perhaps a surprise is Caden Lindstrom, who we just talked about, all the way down at number 10. Folks apparently are getting on the bandwagon with respect to Beckett Seneca, and he's at number 12, having moved up from number 39 on Craig's list. But yes, Konsta Helenius, I've seen him in the teens on other draft lists as a player. As you said, I like quite a bit. And in fact, I think it was one of the pre-season shows in September, I said that, at that point we didn't know where the Canadiens were going to be picking, but if they had a chance to pick Konsta Helenius, I would be pretty happy. Now, I guess the only the issue there is size, 5'11", 180, maybe an undersized forward compared to if you had the chance to choose Caden Lindstrom. But I like what Craig says about Helenius. Quote, he said, I think he's an elite number 1 center. I think his brain power is massive. His skills are excellent. He plays the game with so much confidence, but it emanates from a high level of understanding in the game. I think he could be a lowercase Sasha Barkov. So interesting list from Craig. He'll have others. We're a month away from the draft, and we're going to have additional draft experts. As I said, our show last week Episode 296 with Russ Cohen was very popular, very well subscribed, hugely downloaded. If you missed it, you'll want to go to CanadiansConnection.fm or your favorite podcast app to listen to that one. And we'll have other draft experts coming up from Sportsnet, from Hockey Prospect, from the Hockey News. It's going to be busy. You're going to want to be subscribed to this podcast to hear the best draft information.
And we have more draft stuff to talk about right here, as a new NHL mock draft came out from The Athletic, from Corey Pronman and Scott Wheeler, and they have the Canadiens selecting Ivan Demidov at number 5. I'm not going to lie, this particular mock draft seems like it was set up specifically so that the Canadiens could have Ivan Demidov at number 5. I'll just mention the top 3 quickly here, if you don't mind. Of course, Macklin Celebrini, number 1, 2 to Chicago, Artem Levshunov, and number 3 is Anton Sileyev. So a couple of defensemen going there, and I'll let you jump in here, Rick.
Yeah, a new day, a new mock from The Athletic. This one, Pronman and Wheeler putting their heads together and making up this mock. No surprise with Macklin Celebrini at the number 1 pick. Interesting that they have Levshunov going. He's the right-handed D. Levshunov going to the Blackhawks, and Corey Pronman made that pick and says that the winds are blowing in the direction of Demidov. They're not Levshunov. For the Canadiens, for it to get to number 5 and the Canadiens to have the choice of Demidov or Lindstrom, obviously Demidov would be my pick, but that would have to be in a dream world for that scenario to play out for the Canadiens. I find it hard to believe that Chicago would pass on a partner like Demidov for Connor Bedard, but stranger things have happened. And they have Columbus picking defenseman, a guy you like, Sam Dickinson.
Nice.
But Columbus can go either way there, and what's there's change happening in Columbus. What's as far as the management goes, so what's going to happen there, and how are those management changes going to affect who's chosen? So this would be a good news story for the Montreal Canadiens, but how realistic it is, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, and we do have one other Montreal Canadiens mock draft pick that we could talk about. With that later pick of the first round, they selected Sacha Boisvert, the center for the Montreal Canadiens out of the USHL. And I believe that's someone that's also been talked about a little bit on the show. So they are predicting that Montreal takes 2 pretty high-end forwards in that first round.
Yeah, Wheeler has them picking Lucas Pettersson from Modo. But yeah, it would, whether it's Boisvert, whether it's Baudin, we talked about a number of the choices that the Canadiens are going to have. We talked about that with Russ Cohen last week. So you might want to check on his evaluation of their options at that second round pick, number 26, as we just said.
Taking a look at the 2024 Memorial Cup tournament, it began just last night on Friday. The 4 teams involved are London, Drummondville, Moose Jaw, and Saginaw. For Saginaw, there is one Montreal Canadiens prospect in Owen Beck, and right now the Saginaw Spirit are up 1. They won that first game against Moose Jaw 5-4 in that game. Owen Beck scored 1 goal, put up 1 assist, and Zane Parek, who's available in the upcoming draft, potentially getting drafted in the top 10 there, put up 1 goal and 2 assists in that game. So the Memorial Cup is plenty underway, and lots of good teams, lots of good prospects to keep an eye on if you are looking forward to that NHL draft. Also, Sam Dickinson making an appearance in this tournament too.
Saginaw is the host team, and London, the OHL rep, Drummondville from the Q, and Moose Jaw representing the WHL. Owen Beck had a great first game, And we have a new feature for thn.com/Montreal, and that's a forum, a round table where we can have discussions. And Mike Rash will put in a really great evaluation of Owen Beck's game in Game 1, and was very complimentary. You mentioned Zane Parekh. He was named player of the game with that goal and 2 assists. A great start to his Memorial Cup, and he's going to be closely watched. Absolutely. And we remember that the Canadiens have spoken to him more than a couple of times. For Owen Beck, being the only Canadiens prospect, there was a great interview. This was done by Radio Canada this past week with Owen Beck. And he said that he was very proud of his quote. I was very proud of my development this season. Of course, he was moved mid-season to Saginaw, and then his offense kind of exploded from there. But you know that he's a pretty complete player, and I expect him to be have a good showing in the training camp in the fall. But he mentions that playing without the puck was something that he wanted to improve, and that it was one Paul Byron. And about Paul Byron, he said, Paul's been an important part of my development this year. Paul Byron spent a lot of time with him, breaking down his game, kind of showing him where to be on the ice, and helped him through. And Paul Byron, the new development consultant for the Canadiens, and it. Paul Byron spoke about Owen Beck a few weeks back, saying that Owen Beck could be next year's surprise in the NHL. He's that confident in Beck's abilities. So nice part of the development. Paul Byron making that transition to the next stage of his career, his hockey career, and he's played a big role with one of the Canadiens prospects, Owen Beck.
So looking forward to continuing along with this Memorial Cup. Rick, I know your team is not currently involved in this tournament. Did you have a team that you're keeping an eye on the most?
Well, listen, I went to school at Waterloo, so the Kitchener Rangers were always they were my favorite team in the OHL, but I also worked at Western University and went to quite a few London Knights games. I have a huge amount of respect for the London Knights organization. I think they have a terrific program, and so very fond of that organization as my number 2 CHL team. So I'll certainly be keeping an eye on the London Knights as well as Drummondville. We cover the Q as well, so. And Joe Tasca set up a preview of the Memorial Cup and how Drummondville made it. Of course, they swept Baie-Comeau to get to the finals. So it's going to be a great tournament, and going to be keeping an eye on Saginaw as well with Owen Beck there. So can't really say that I have a favorite at this point.
So you can find all of our content about Canadiens prospects at thn.com/Montreal, and you can find excellent English language coverage of the Quebec Maritimes Junior Hockey League at thn.com/QMJHL. And to end this segment, we have quite a bit of hockey news and notes to get to. A report came from Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts saying due to mismanagement by City Hall in Montreal, they risk losing the ability to host the Four Nations tournament in February 2025. It's not been confirmed yet, but it has been reported that the NHL was looking to do this tournament in Boston and Montreal. If Montreal's not able to come through with it, it looks like Toronto would be on the table.
Come on, Mayor Valerie Plante, get your act together, and Montreal's not going to lose out to this out to Toronto for this event. Of course, the Four Nations Cup is scheduled to happen in February 2025, replacing the All-Star game. Would be a bad look. So let's go. Let's get going. And get this solidified for Montreal as a host.
For sure. Some more NHL awards were announced. Florida Panthers captain Alexander Barkov has been named the winner of the Selke for this season. The other nominations went to Austin Matthews and Jordan Staal. I think this is the right call. I guess all in all, the Selke Trophy, the Patrice Bergeron Trophy, otherwise as it's known, is the best defensive forward, and I think Alexander Barkov fits that very completely. Coming in 13th in voting is actually Montreal Canadiens center and captain Nick Suzuki. He did not receive any first-place votes, but he received some ladder votes, and no votes for former Montreal Canadiens forward Phil Deneau.
Wasn't Phil Deneau, by most of the Montreal media's estimation, supposed to be the heir apparent to Patrice Bergeron for this trophy? That's fascinating. But good on Nick Suzuki for placing in the voting and getting some recognition. At the beginning of the season, when yourself and Amy and I did our preseason predictions, I had Nico Hischier on my list. More recently, I guess about a month ago, I voted in a Hockey News poll, and I had Barkov as my selection. So I think he was far and away the best defensive forward in the National Hockey League, and very deserving of the Selke for this season.
Absolutely. One more award to announce here. Vancouver Canucks coach Rick Tocchet has been named the winner of the Jack Adams Award, so that's the best coach. He led the Vancouver Canucks to a record of 50-23-9. That's 109 points in the regular season, and they were Pacific Division champions, and I think that's well deserved there by Rick Tocchet. I don't think that any other coach came close. There were some good nominations, but Rick Tocchet obviously was the one that deserved this the most, in our opinion, at least.
Yeah, I had Tocchet, mentioning that Hockey News poll. I had Tocchet as my pick, and congratulations to him.
Looking at the coaching carousel, since we mentioned a couple of coaches there, the New Jersey Devils have named Sheldon Keefe as head coach. Recently, Keefe was fired by the Toronto Maple Leafs. There were some rumors that if Sheldon Keefe became available, that the New Jersey Devils would be very interested, and it did not take them very long to jump on this opportunity. Excited to see what Sheldon Keefe can do with this very young and talented roster. Perhaps a bit of a better D-core there in New Jersey that's developing. So this is quite intriguing, and I think that Keefe and Jake Allen will get along quite well.
Lindy Ruff was the coach in New Jersey for the better part of the season. He was fired on March 4th, replaced by Travis Green. Travis Green at the helm of the team for how many weeks before being replaced by Sheldon Keefe? So congratulations to Sheldon Keefe.
Coming out of Winnipeg, they have a brand new head coach. They went with Scott Arniel. He has been officially hired as a head coach on Friday. He joined Bonus's staff in 2022 as an assistant, and I guess in those 2 years working under Rick Bonus, he made a bit of a good impression. So big congratulations to Scott there, and nice to see a new name getting an opportunity as a head coach as well.
Yeah, Scott Arniel's been around for the most part in a assistant or associate coach role with Buffalo, with the Rangers, with the Capitals. Got a lot of experience, and twice this past season he was asked to fill in. Rick Bonus missed 11 games back in October, November when his wife was ill, and then Rick had his own medical difficulties in March, and Arniel stepped into the head coaching position. So Arniel was kind of the natural choice. I think he had been taking care of the defensive side of things for the Jets, and we'll see how he performs as their head coach.
Los Angeles Kings have named Jim Hiller as their next head coach. General manager Rob Blake introduced Hiller as the Kings' permanent head coach on Thursday, retaining the Kings' former assistant coach who took over for Todd McClellan in February as an interim head coach. And it's another, a new head coach around the league that does not have a previous NHL head coaching experience. And I think this is another pretty good fit here. Nice to see that he had that interim tag removed.
The Kings were eliminated in the first round of the playoffs by the Oilers. But as you said, Hiller was taking over from Todd McClellan, fired on the 2nd of February. And Hiller has a connection to the Los Angeles Kings. He was drafted by them. In the 1989 draft, he was drafted in the 10th round. We don't have 10-round drafts anymore, but a 10th round pick, number 207 overall, in the 1989 NHL draft, and now he gets to be the head coach of that team.
Nice. That draft finally pays off for them. News in terms of general managers. Out of Carolina, Don Waddell has stepped down as general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes. Eric Tulsky was named interim general manager. Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman is reporting that Waddell has interviewed with the Columbus Blue Jackets on Thursday after the Athletic's Pierre LeBrun reported that the Hurricanes had given Waddell permission to speak to other teams. So despite putting together a pretty good Carolina Hurricanes team over the past few seasons, they've been pretty successful in the regular season. They made it to one Eastern Conference final, but have had a bit of an earlier exit this year out in round 2. I'm interested to see what happens with Tulsky here. He's a name that seems to come up whenever there's an open GM spot. Currently, like I said, he's going to be interim, and we'll see what the Carolina Hurricanes want to do from there, if they want to remove that interim tag or if they want to do a full-fledged search.
It's fascinating. We know the owner, Tom Dundon, is a numbers guy and does things a bit differently. Eric Tulsky didn't come through the regular ranks that you might expect a general manager to come through. Eric Tulsky is an analytics guy, and he was an analytics guy writing for Broad Street Hockey, a blog in Philadelphia about the Philadelphia Flyers, and made his way. So it's, for all those analytics guys out there, gives them some hope that they can make it in the National Hockey League. Interesting with Don Waddell. He's led Carolina to 6 straight Stanley Cup playoff appearances. Resigned as president and general manager. And on Saturday, just to update that, Pierre LeBrun says that he's about to be added to the Columbus Blue Jackets. The official announcement is supposed to come early in the week to the top hockey ops role, whether that's president of hockey ops, whether they'll still go and add whether Columbus will still go and add a general manager, or whether Waddell will take that role. We know that we just talked about the Kings. We know that Marc Bergevin had interviewed in Columbus, so some moving pieces there. But we know that for now, Tulsky, acting GM with the Hurricanes, and we know that to expect an announcement. We'll have that for you next week about Don Waddell in Columbus.
A couple of general managers got to work early. I know that the playoffs are still underway, but there can be some trades that still go down. The Chicago Blackhawks have moved up in the first round and second round of the 2024 draft in a trade with the New York Islanders. So the Blackhawks will acquire picks 18 and 50 from the Islanders in exchange for picks 20, 54, and 61. So getting work done early. The Islanders are picking up an extra second-round pick, so that helps them quite a bit, and they're not moving back too much in either of those rounds. I think it makes sense for both teams, but it is a little bit bizarre to me that this is happening way before the draft, before they even know who's still going to be available at either of those picks.
Yeah, it might be simply that this is the first move of another move that comes up. Like the Canadiens, the Blackhawks have plenty of draft capital. They're using it in this case, giving up an extra second-round pick to move up 2 places in the first round, 4 places in the second round. I think that's the kind of thing that you want to see a general manager do.
Yeah, exactly. So with that, let's head into our first break here. We'll hear a message from our sponsors, DraftKings, and then we'll get to our big topic segment with Chris G, Canadiens players making strides in the offseason. This is the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
We are this close to crowning the Stanley Cup champion. And with the action heating up on the ice, it's even hotter at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. New to DraftKings? Listen up. New customers can get a no-sweat bet up to $1,500. Just deposit at least $5, and you'll get a bonus bet back equal to your first bet if it doesn't hit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get a no-sweat bet up to $1,500 if your first bet doesn't hit. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or in West Virginia visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. One no-sweat bet per new customer. Issued as one bonus bet based on amount of initial losing bet. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.co/ice for eligibility, wagering, and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Copyright NHL 2024. All rights reserved.
Podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio. My name is Michael Spinella, and you can find me on Twitter at The Spinella. And with me in the studio is our president and founder of Rocket Sports, Rick Stevens. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Rocket Sports, and also make sure that you're following this podcast at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Plus, you can check out our website, canadiensconnection.fm. And if you have not already, just a little reminder here to make sure that you are subscribed to the Canadiens Connection podcast in the player or on your favorite podcasting app. That way you never miss a single episode. And this is a big topic segment. Chris G is getting ready to step into the studio with us pretty soon here, Rick. But to tee him up, we're going to title this one, Canadiens players making strides this offseason. So although the Montreal Canadiens regular season is done, we still have plenty of hockey happening, plenty of hockey to keep track of. And some of those Montreal Canadiens players are still playing. Some of the prospects are still competing in the Memorial Cup and whatnot. And who better to talk about this than our very own Chris G. He used to host a podcast alongside you, Rick, Habs 360 podcast that went for nearly 250 episodes. Currently the senior writer for Rocket Sports, 1 year of coverage with the Hockey News Montreal, and he does a lot of coverage on the Montreal Canadiens, the Laval Rocket, and the Trois-Rivières Lions. You can also give him a follow on Twitter at Chris Habs 360 on Twitter. And with that, Rick, let's welcome Chris G to the studio. Off to you guys.
Thanks, Michael. I'm really pleased today to welcome back to the Canadiens Connection podcast Chris G. If you follow our work on the Hockey News, you're very familiar with Chris G. Or if you used to listen to the podcast when they were Habs 360, you're also very familiar with Chris G. Chris G is a senior writer for Rocket Sports and the Hockey News, and it's been a while, Chris, but we're pleased to welcome you back to the Canadiens Connection.
It has been a while, Rick, and it's my pleasure to be back here.
Well, we're happy to have you back, and at this time of year, while the Montreal Canadiens themselves aren't on the ice, the Laval Rocket, the Trois-Rivières Lions, players of the Canadiens organization have been participating in the 2024 IIHF World Championship that's been going on in Czechia, in Prague. The Canadiens had 5 players participating. As we move into the semifinals, Sweden versus Czechia and Canada versus Swiss, there is only one player left, and that's as we record this, and that's Caden Gooley. But I thought I'd just get your general impressions on the tournament, on the individual players that have the individual Canadiens players that have been in the tournament and their impact. Because I think amongst some Canadiens fans, maybe it isn't a tournament that's always that well followed. So I thought we could just go through some of the players that were at the tournament. I reference the Hockey News. You provided a really good daily update on the tournament. And maybe just talk about your articles as they appeared over the last couple of weeks on thn.com/Montreal.
Yeah, so since the beginning of the tournament, at the end of every competition day, there would be a post up on the Hockey News Montreal site with the focus on the 5 Montreal Canadiens prospects and how they did that day, and also what was coming up the next day, who was playing, and how they were doing so far at the tournament. So, like you mentioned, it's not a tournament that's followed a lot by Canadiens fans, and also the times that the games are played, weekdays during the day. It's not very convenient for all fans to watch it. So what I was trying to do with my daily recaps is try to make it easy for Canadiens fans to go there with one post and read how the Canadiens prospects, and players did in Prague every day.
Yeah, so if you missed that, and if you missed the series, you can go to thn.com/Montreal and look for the game day tab. All of Chris's daily recaps are there. And I think that it's not necessarily best on best, because some of the best players in the world are still involved in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but there are good players there. There are very good players there. And for the Montreal Canadiens players to go and compete for their country, to gain experience, to be maybe put in different roles, to play with other players from their country. I think it's been very important, at the very least, in gaining some confidence and kind of springboard their off-season training. What do you think about that?
And also I think like the fact that there's a couple of I'll call them some international competitions coming up, like the Four Nations Cup, the Olympics, that are coming up in 2026 as well. I think that served as extra motivation to some players to participate in that tournament, where we've seen other years, some of the top players, like once the NHL season is done, like they don't want to extend their season any longer. But we heard the Team USA's management, Hockey Canada, they said, you know what, like if you participate, if we call you to go to the World Championships, we suggest you go, because that's gonna help. It's gonna put them. It's gonna add a sticker next to their name when it comes to them picking their rosters for those international competitions. So definitely, I think it's good for the players as well to get there, get that exposure as well, and increase your chance of participating in the bigger events that are coming up.
It's a really great point, and I think Cole Caulfield said, if you get an invitation, he doesn't understand why anyone wouldn't go. I don't know if that was a message to his line mate Nick Suzuki or not, but Nick Suzuki decided not to go. Sam Montembeault decided not to go. Meg Matheson had a pretty good excuse that he had a new baby daughter born this past week, he and his wife Emily. So that's why I think he turned down the invitation there. As far as the players that did go, I've kind of ranked them, the 5 players, as least impactful, no disrespect intended, to most impactful at the tournament. And maybe our listeners will disagree, and if you do, send us a text at 585 through Rocket. But let's start with maybe a bit of a surprise. Austria surprised some teams, including Canada. Vincenz Rohr, a Canadiens prospect at the tournament. How did you see him doing?
He had a good start to the tournament. He recorded 2 points in his first 2 games. So it looked like, he might have a good tournament, but then he was shut out for the last 5 games off the score sheet, ended the tournament with a -5. And his ice time, if it was fluctuated, he finished with a little bit over 10 minutes of ice time. Am I surprised that from the 5 Canadians, like he was the one that would be that would have the least impact? No, considering his age, considering his experience that he has. So I think it's as expected. Nothing to be worried about in this case for this tournament.
Just a 19-year-old. He was picked third-round pick in 2022, and has played in the Swiss League for the Lions, Zurich Lions, the past few years, and we expect him to be back there again this coming season. Just above him, I have Cole Caulfield listed, and I think it was maybe a disappointing tournament for Cole Caulfield. It was certainly, I think, a disappointing tournament for the U.S. team, who they didn't make it to the semifinals, and they might have expected to do so. How did you see Cole Caulfield's tournament going?
I'd say from the 5 Canadian players that were there, he's the one that disappointed me. I'd say the most disappointing performance. Like earlier we said about Roar, like about his age, was it's not a surprise that he would have had the least impact. But Cole Caulfield, he finished the tournament with 8 points in 8 games, which it sounds good, right? 1 point a game. It's not a bad production. Like if you in the NHL, you produce 82 points in 82 games, you're like, that's a great season. Finished +5 as well, which all looks good on paper. But then if you examine his production a little bit more, you notice that he recorded all his 8 points against teams that didn't make it to the quarterfinals. He recorded points against Germany, he recorded points against Poland, and he got his points against Latvia. So it's not three powerhouses in hockey. And there was even one game that the USA just destroyed Kazakhstan 10-1, and Cole Caulfield didn't get a point in that game, and he was on the ice for that one goal that Kazakhstan allowed. That Kazakhstan scored, I should say. He was on the ice for that one.
Moving up the list, we have Oliver Kapanen, who I think for some Canadiens fans was like, who's this Oliver Kapanen? Second round pick in 2021. He had a great season for Kalpa, and he signed a contract with Timrå in the Swedish Hockey League, and is likely to be there next year, although that could change if an ELC is signed over the summer. But right away, I look at the scoring leaders for the tournament, and I see Dylan Cousins and Brady Tkachuk and Kevin Fiala and Matt Boldy, Joel Eriksson, Nico Hischier, and Oliver Kapanen. All of those other players are established NHLers. Oliver Kapanen is not, yet his name is right there in the goal-scoring list. Pretty remarkable, right?
Yeah, and for a good chunk of the tournament, he was on top of that list, like leading the tournament for most goals. So he got 6 goals in his first 4 games. Then, in terms of production, he tailed off for the last 4 games. He was sold off the score sheet. But Kapanen, in addition to his goal scoring, he also had a good tournament when it comes to the faceoffs. In the 8 games that Finland played, in 6 of those, his face-off winning percentage was at least 50% or higher, which is a good stat. You win more draws than you lose. You had a good night at the face-off dot, and in one of the games where he scored a hat trick, he was named the best player of his team. So Kapanen, I think he had a good tournament, and the fact that, like, his age, his experience, even though he had less points than Cole Caulfield, I still feel he had a better tournament than him.
You mentioned about player of the game. Every Canadiens player, with the exception of Vincent Rohr, was named player of the game. So Caulfield, Kapanen, Goulet, and Slavkovsky in one of the games was named player of the game, which I thought was an important point for Canadiens fans. And then we get to Caden Goulet, again, one of those players who was named player of the game. And I guess the knock on Caden Goulet, as he's been developing in the National Hockey League, is he's strong in his own end, but is he capable of producing offense? And I think we got a glimpse of that at this tournament.
We did. He finished the tournament with 5 points in 8 games, and he finished the tournament with a +4 as well. And Caden Goulet has his eyes to earn a spot at the Olympics. Like, he wasn't shy when after one of the days off, he was interviewed by RDS, and his goal is definitely try to earn a spot for the Canadian Olympic team. And if he makes the Olympic team, it won't be based on his offense production. He would have like a role or like as a shutdown defenseman, somebody who could play in the penalty kill. That's the way that if he earns a spot, that he'll have to earn it. Blocking shots, like we've saw with the Canadiens as well. The way that he blocks shots or sacrifices his body when he had to. Another thing for Caden Goulet, the coach, André Tourigny, he's a big fan of Caden Goulet, who this tournament in Prague, wasn't the first time that Tourigny coached Goulet. He coached them at the World Juniors in 20 or 21. Sorry, the year escapes me. But even after that tournament, lots of praise for the Canadiens, defensemen. So Caden Goulet, he's had a good tournament. He's the only, like you said, the only Canadiens player that's still alive in his tournament, and I think he's definitely opened some eyes. I'm not saying that he's going to earn a spot at the Olympics. I'm not saying that, but I think he got some attention.
Which leaves us Juraj Slavkovsky, and Slavkovsky just now. Playing with Slovakia, I think he plays a little bit different type of game, a different type of role, but he seemed to be a leader for Slovakia, and also I think his performance was partly fueled by the fans. He had a huge fan following there. Of course, Prague is in Czechia, right next door to Slovakia, so there was lots of fans from Slovakia there, and I just wanted to read a quote by the Slovakian coach, who's Craig Ramsay. Craig Ramsay, of course, we remember, Canadiens fans should remember Craig Ramsay. His last job in the NHL was with Montreal as a kind of a skills coach or a consultant or a power play coach. He was good friends with Rick Dudley, and Rick Dudley brought him in to help the power play. Craig Ramsay is the oldest coach at the tournament, 73 years old. And he was asked about Slavkovsky and Nemec.
Oh.
And his answer was, quote, "They'll both be stars. They have the skill, but they want to be the guy, which is half the battle. If the coach asks for volunteers who are going to be stars tonight, they will put their hands up. I see them as future great champions." Craig Ramsay's seen a lot of very good hockey players in his days with the NHL, and he sees Juraj Slavkovsky as being a future great champion. How did you see him at this tournament?
Slavkovsky, you could tell that he's very competitive and he doesn't like to lose.
No.
He gets into the games, and was it the first or the second game of the tournament when he got into a little scrum with an opponent, and he was telling me, look at the scoreboard, because look what the score is. Yeah. It's his competitive nature. He doesn't like to lose. And in his tournament, I think he had a good tournament. 8 assists in 8 games, finished +1. He got at least a point in every game except for one, and he even participated in a shootout in one of the contests, and he went 1 for 2 because he got an opportunity to shoot a second time. It was a little bit different in the IIHF when it comes to shootouts, so he got a second attempt in that one, and we saw his playmaking ability, like in terms of passes in this tournament. We didn't see him score a goal, which was a little bit the knock when he first started in the NHL in the start of this season that just concluded. We saw a little bit of that. Is it based on how the team plays? Is it different environment, new teammates? Probably a little bit of everything, but 8 games, it's not a big sample size to be worried about his goal scoring, but he definitely had a good tournament. And like you mentioned earlier, I think the support he obtained there by the fans, even on social media, the IIHF had him on their account, on their account a couple of times. So he's a pretty popular player, and I think he lived up to his talent during this tournament.
Yeah, those 8 assists, he was tied for first in terms of assists in the tournament. You said about not scoring a goal that it was kind of reminiscent of early in the season when everybody was telling him to shoot more. And I remember him coming to the podium saying that he got a text from his mom saying, shoot more. So I wonder if she was also texting or even in person at the tournament. Go ahead.
And just to add to what you're saying earlier about Craig Ramsay and how he appreciated Juraj Slafkovský, in almost every game that Slovakia has during the tournament, Slafkovský was usually the most used forward on his team. So he was, like we said, he was the star of the team, and the coach using him accordingly, and he kept rewarding him with important ice time for the team.
Yeah, and I think more so than the numbers, the statistics that we've listed, it's that seeing that the coach has confidence in the players, all of these players who were chosen to represent their country, who were given ice time, who are given important roles for their respective teams, with the hope that they'll play. Maybe in the four team championship or the Olympics at some point, and I think it's just really important for all of these young players to take a positive step in their development, and a really good springboard to their off-season training. I think it's been invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the other thing other reason that I thought it would be good to have you here was we've just as Rocket Sports has just completed the very first year of our association with the Hockey News. We're proud to be associated with the Hockey News and to provide exclusively. We provide all the content on the Montreal Canadiens. For the Hockey News. I'll mention the site again, thn.com/Montreal. And Chris, you've been a big part of that. And you've now been a beat reporter for the Montreal Canadiens coverage, the Laval Rocket coverage, the Trois-Rivières Lions coverage, attending all the arenas. And you've been very busy, you've been very productive. You put out some great content. How's your first year been being in that role and having your articles featured on the Hockey News?
It's been a great experience, and I think great. I'm probably not the right adjective to say it. It's been better than great. It's been amazing. It's been a very good experience, and this last season that just concluded, and it started off, I'd say, like the first I'll call it major assignment under the Hockey News Montreal umbrella was the draft at the end of last year in Nashville. That was like the first real assignment, the major assignment on the Hockey News umbrella, and that was quite the experience. Being inside the arena for the first night, the first round, when the Canadiens announced the name of David Reinbacher, and then meeting with the media in the minutes after it happened, speaking to Kent Hughes, and right after that selection to get his thoughts on it. It was at the hotel, because that was at the exact prior to the draft is when the Canadiens acquired Alex Newhook as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the first media availability of Kent Hughes and Martin St. Louis was there as well. To talk about the Alex Newhook trade was in Nashville as well, so I got the chance to be there, and when you were discussing that acquisition as well. So that was quite the experience as well when it comes to the draft. There's a lot more in that. I was the first one to report that Carey Price would be at the draft that night, and that was quite memorable moment at the draft as well, with the announcement. The announcement that was great. That was something else. But and then, so for the Rocket, it was the sixth season that I just concluded covering the Rocket for Rocket Sports. The first one under the Hockey News umbrella as well, and that's always a great experience. And this year was quite the roller coaster of a year for the Laval Rocket. And on the ice, with the team, the way the team played, it started off really, really slow start. It was like 5 wins in their first 20-something games. It wasn't looking good. And then right before Christmas holidays, they won 10 of 12 games, which brought them back into the race. And then it kind of lasted all the way until game 71 of the season. So that was something. And this year, the added pleasure of covering the Laval Rocket was being in the building, in the packed building, whether it was a Wednesday night or a Friday night or a Saturday afternoon, or whenever the Rocket will play a home game this season. The arena was always full. They set their own record for attendance, and that just added to everything when it comes to the Rocket.
And there was the individual performances, whether it was Yoel Armia coming down for 2 stints and looking pretty good. Arbor Xhekaj coming down. Joshua Waugh had a great season, and of course the All-Star Logan Mailloux had an absolutely tremendous season. And so we were absolutely thrilled to have you there and have you reporting from Place Bell, and then you also were covering the Canadiens ECHL affiliate with your weekly Lions Notepad articles.
Yeah, and they had, I would say, mostly off the ice storylines heading their way. And it started off even prior to the start of the season. They had hired Ron Schulz to be an assistant coach with the team. And I can even take a step back further than that. Marc-André Bergeron, who was the head coach and general manager for the team last season, sudden departure, out of the picture. Pascal Réaume, he wasn't under contract. He was in the process of looking for another job. And then when Bergeron left, they brought him back, named him general manager and head coach. He hired Ron Schulz to be his assistant. Was it a couple of weeks or a month later, Pascal Vincent got a job with in the AHL as an assistant coach. Ron Schulz gets promoted immediately to head coach and general manager. And it was hard to know at that time, but that was just the beginning of what happened for the rest of the season after that. So there was a lot of uncertainty around ownership of the team, and players, when you would talk, they would say, we're just focused on the ice and what we do. But I feel that it was evident that the uncertainty with ownership and the survival of the team impacted the players and the way they were playing on the ice. They had a great start of the season. The middle part of the season was horrible. And when I mean the start of the season was good, they were top in the league after 13 games. Then it was a free fall. And then as the ownership picture was getting clarified with Jeff Dickinson and his group coming in, then the team went on an uphill again. They're in themselves a playoff spot, and then they had a playoff appearance in the first round against Norfolk where they lost. But it was quite the season for them, the up and downs for them. But considering all those external factors, I think they had a good season considering everything that was going around the team.
Well, I know one thing for certain is you had a very good season, an excellent season, covering the Canadiens, the Rocket, and the Lions, and we're thrilled to have you as part of the. Well, for those that don't know, my association with Chris goes back many years. I think it was 2012 or thereabouts when he approached me. We were at Broussard, I think, and
yeah.
Said, I got this podcast idea. And so prior to the Canadiens Connection, and the Canadiens Connection is now approaching a milestone, 300 episodes. Well, prior to that was Habs 360 that you brought to Rocket Sports, and almost 250 episodes of Habs 360 every Saturday, just like the Canadiens Connection. And so we've worked together for a long time. I've really appreciated all of your efforts, and you're a big part of our team, and expect that to continue next season. And we really appreciate your contributions, and you'll be a big part of what's on the site this summer as well. So if you want to see Chris's work, head to thn.com/Montreal. And Chris, going down memory lane, Habs 360 was wonderful, and it's led us to the Canadiens Connection here.
Yeah, it was. It's been quite a journey over since 2012. Wow, time flies, but it's been quite the journey over a decade now.
So if you want to see Chris's work, go to, as I keep saying, thn.com/Montreal. You can follow Chris on Twitter or on X. It's at ChrisHabs360. You'll also find him on Instagram or other socials. Chris, thanks for being back on the Canadiens Connection. It's been far too long, and we really appreciate everything that you had to say about the World Championship.
Thanks for having me, Rick.
And thanks so much. Appreciate Chris G stepping in to give us that wonderful conversation alongside you, Rick. That was a ton of fun to listen to, and very excited to see how these Habs progress over this offseason.
It's great to have Chris back in the studio, and as I said, he does an awful lot of work for us on our website, thn.com/Montreal. And but he was also pretty comfortable being back in the studio seat.
Yeah, I'll miss seeing him in the studio. We'll see what he's around to, but he's a very busy guy. Love his writing as well, so make sure you check all of that out at thn.com/Montreal. And that conversation ties in very nicely with our Canadiens Connection question of the week, as we will ask all of our listeners, as we are in the last week of May, what kind of hockey are you watching? NHL playoffs, World Championships, Memorial Cup. We want to hear from you. And Rick, I think it's a good time to get to our final break here, so make sure that you stick around with us. This is Canadiens Connection Podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
The Canadiens Connection is proud to be a partner of Rocket Sports Media, digital media publishers of sports and entertainment websites. Their mission is to build a worldwide network of sports fans who are informed, engaged, entertained, and connected. Learn more about RSM, its team, and its portfolio of brands at rocketsportsmedia.com. I bet you enjoy sporting your best Habs jerseys, dressing up your kids and pets in the cutest Habs gear, and showing off your decked-out hockey cave or fanning. Well, don't just show your friends, show your Habs. The Rocket Sports Media team wants you to boast your finest pictures for our global network of Montreal Canadiens fans. Include the hashtag #ShowYourHabs when posting your fan photos on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Then log on to showyourhabs.com to see your entries, along with photos and posts from Habs fans all over the world. A proud member of the Rocket Sports Media Network. If you're a business owner looking for the perfect platform to reach a targeted audience of customers, Rocket Sports Media is the solution. Our global hockey community provides unmatched social media reach to an attentive demographic of sports and entertainment fans. We can provide visibility to your company, helping you to engage and leverage this prime group of potential clientele. In addition, we also offer sponsorship opportunities for fan events and featured areas of website content, giving you name and logo recognition. Visit rocketsportsmedia.com to contact us regarding this unique marketing opportunity. For the most trusted source of news, analysis, and features about the Montreal Canadiens, log in to thn.com/Montreal, your year-round source for anything Habs related. That's thn.com/Montreal.
Welcome back to episode 297 of the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio. You can follow at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Plus, you can check out the website canadiensconnection.fm. And feel free to text us anytime via the Rocket Sports text line. It's 5853-ROCKET. That's 5853-ROCKET. We love hearing from all of our listeners, and very nice yet again to hear from Chris G in that second segment. So big thanks to him for lending us some time out of his busy Rocket Sports schedule. And I think it's a good opportunity to let everyone know where to find all the things that we do. And it's going to be a crazy offseason, lots of draft coverage to come up. And the best place for you to find it, you can find all that content at thn.com/Montreal. That's where we cover the Montreal Canadiens for the hockey news. All your Canadiens coverage in one place. And if you're looking for some coverage in multimedia content, we do a ton of that as well. Just make sure that you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Just search at All Habs. You can find it on there. Every single Monday, we put out our Canadiens Connection podcast on there. You can find last week's episode entitled NHL Draft Elite Prospect Scout Ranks Canadiens First Round Options. And this was a very popular episode, like you said, Rick. A lot of Canadiens fans looking for that draft coverage.
That's right. And, Russ Cohen is one of the best NHL amateur scouts out there. And always has a great list, has great information. Be sure, if you haven't done so already, to go back and listen to episode 296 and about and I should say that's the first of other experts. We're going to have other draft experts, so be sure that you're listening every week and subscribe to the Canadiens Connection podcast.
You can also look out for the Rocket Hockey Report that comes out on Tuesdays and hosted by our very own Amy Johnson. The latest episode is entitled "This Laval Rocket Coach Won't Be Back Next Season." So if you want to stay up to date with everything Laval Rocket, they have a pretty interesting offseason coming up as well. It's currently underway, and if you want to stay up to date, that's the best way. Head over and check out the latest Rocket Hockey Report and look out for the newer ones throughout this offseason. Amy does a great job hosting, so leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment too. Get involved in that conversation, as we get tons of comments on all of our videos, and we appreciate hearing from each and every one of you. Also on Thursday, you can look out for the Habs Hockey Report. That's also hosted by Amy Johnson, and a similar situation where that's going to be your midweek update on the Montreal Canadiens. And Amy, like I said, a wonderful host. She's been with us and doing this for a lot of time, a ton of experience. Always fun to catch up with Amy on these videos, and hit a like if you like what you saw. Hit subscribe as well so you don't miss out on any of these upcoming episodes, and leave a comment. Like I said, too, all these videos get tons of comments from our own Habs community there, and we love to interact with each and every one of you. Throughout this off season, you can also look out for various watch-along live streams on our YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button. That way you never miss a single one of our upcoming live streams. You can also tap that notification bell. That way you get notified as soon as one is coming up. We did one for the draft lottery, and we'll let you know as soon as the next one is coming up. Typically, these are hosted by myself, along with my Rocket Sports Media colleague, Nathan. We have a lot of fun, and we enjoy watching each and every big event alongside you. Make sure that you are also subscribed to the premier Rocket Sports Radio podcast on your favorite podcasting app, The Canadiens Connection. You can find that as well at our website, canadiensconnection.fm. We're going to be here every single Saturday throughout this entire summer. I know throughout the summer, a lot of hockey content seems to drop off, but we'll be here every single week. We don't like to go on vacations or anything. We have a ton of draft coverage coming up, like Rick just said. And if you enjoy the show, we would really appreciate if you left us a 5-star review. We are your inside link to the Montreal Canadiens. And just a little Rocket Sports team announcement. We are recruiting, Rick, and what sort of roles are we looking for?
Well, I think we like to work with you, what you excel at, and find a place for you if you're the right fit for our team, if you're dedicated, if you're passionate about hockey and the Montreal Canadiens. We'll be glad to have you join our team, and we're a great team to work with. But in particular, if you'd like to learn about sports writing and can write short informational posts every single day, we're glad to fit you in there. If you are have some experience in audio and could be a podcast producer, we'd gladly have you there. If you do graphics and you like the Montreal Canadiens and would like to prepare graphics for our content on thn.com/Montreal, we can fit you in there too. So reach out to us. Best way is to send me an email, and you can do that at the following email address. It's hello@rocketsportsmedia.com.
And with that, let's turn it over to our listeners for our Canadiens Connection question of the week. We ask each and every one of you, as we're in the last week of May, what kind of hockey are you watching? NHL Playoffs, World Championships, or Memorial Cup? We want to hear from you. You just heard our email. You can let us know there if you have a little bit more to say, or you can let us know by text. Just text us at our Rocket Sports text line, 5853-ROCKET. That's 5853-ROCKET. You can also reach out to us on any of our social medias at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. But like I've mentioned a few times, we get a lot of comments on YouTube throughout some of our videos and content that we put on there. And Rick, what did people have to say this week?
I'll just mention in answering that question, a viable answer is, you know what, I'm not watching hockey right now because the Canadiens aren't involved. I've moved on to MLB, moved on to baseball. I moved on to Formula One with the Montreal Grand Prix coming up here in a couple of weeks, June 7th to 9th, I believe it is. So tell us what your sports viewing habits are like this summer as well. As far as comments, let's just pick a couple of them from YouTube this week. We have, and this is in reply to last week's episode about Russ Cohen analyzing potential first-round picks for the Canadiens. Little Worm Jacobs, 7343, his name, I didn't call him that, says Celebrini and all these superstar players become kitty cats when you have a monster like Anton Saleev. Saleev, of course, the 6'7" defenseman. As for talent-wise, I think the most talented player is Cole Hudson, brother to Lane. If he grows another 2 inches like his brother, he would be the steal of the draft. Habinations, we hear from Habinations frequently. He said he's hoping for Parekh or Yakemchuk, that same Parekh that we talked about a little bit earlier, involved in the Memorial Cup, or Carter Yakemchuk. We have Malaka Spot 3190, who says that they think there's going to be at least 5 defensemen, maybe 6, who are going to get picked in the top 15. Lashunov, Zev Buam, Zane Parekh, Sam Dickinson, Carter Yakemchuk, and Anton Saleev. and then goes on in a very long explanation to talk about who the Canadiens might pick. You'll want to head to youtube.com/allhabs to find that. Islo Pesh 4279 says, why wouldn't every other team ask about Arbor Xhekaj? I'd look at the dump D pile, and that's the first choice for any team. Arbor or Barron, who are you asking about first? All right. And lastly, let me read Brendan Acoin on YouTube. Moving up will cost, and we have lots of D. So don't trade Waugh. That's a loss. Trade Matheson. Keep Savard as our veteran. Taking a large forward seems likely. And goes on to recommend taking Berkeley Catton and maybe Lindstrom at number 5.
Nice. So some love for a bunch of different prospects there, but didn't really feel like there was a concise favorite among those comments, no?
Just like the Scouts, not much consensus in this draft.
Absolutely. So looking forward to continuing to cover this draft, but between now and the NHL entry draft, lots of things to look forward to. Of course, happy Memorial Day goes out to all of our friends south of the border in the United States of America. And of course, in our CH Weekly, the IIHF World Championship medal games will be happening on Sunday. Still waiting to see who else or who will be involved in that gold medal game alongside Czechia, as Canada currently down to Switzerland as we record. And with that, let's make this a wrap for today. Thank you all for tuning in and listening. We would appreciate if you subscribe to the Canadiens Connection podcast in the player or on any of your favorite podcasting apps. It also goes a long way in helping us out if you share on social media. Enjoy the week, and we'll be back here next Saturday, June the 1st, for another great episode. And thank you all for listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
Click subscribe so you never miss an episode of Canadiens Connection. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Rocket Sports.